So as I approach this house, I got to think about, well, what color are the various parts of the house and what are the textures like in it? So here, we'll just start up at the top, work our way over. And so here, thinking about a little bit darker right under here, because that's probably where most of the shadow is going to be. Maybe even, see, I can just push that post in a little bit just by adding a little bit of more dark there, a little shadow. And then this line here, this area of the roof, well, what color is it? What's the texture like? Does it stick out a little bit here? Is it a little bit rough? If this is a beach house, it might be a little bit rough. What kind of color do I want in there to make it stand out a little bit? I think we'll just add a little bit of texture that way and a little bit of color here. But I want it to contrast with here. So I have to go, do I go darker or do I go lighter? I think actually a little bit lighter would be good. So I'll erase some of that out. But it's leaving me with a really nice and interesting texture. And as I've said, life does not come with outlines, but illustration sure can. And so having this outline here will really help to create a contrast between one thing and another. And that is what a line does after all. It separates one thing from another. Okay, so the post. Could I draw this post with a ruler? Sure, I could have. But I prefer to think of it as being kind of rough. It's all kind of worn. It's all kind of weathered. And we'll make it a little bit lighter on this side, but not totally light. So it's getting a little bit of light on it from the sun over here. But it's not in the direct sunlight. Here, on the other hand, is definitely in the shadow from that sun. So I'm going to make this much darker. In fact, what I could do is I could just start off making the whole thing a darker value. And once I have the whole thing as a darker value, then I can come in and I could add some of the details of my texture, and it'll just get darker and darker and darker as I do that. But I don't have to do that much because it already has that initial value, darker value that really represents shadow, represents color, is already there. So I didn't have to do much to get that really dark. Okay. And so coming this way, is this edge going to catch the light? Yeah, but the same as the post. It's catching the light, but maybe it's not catching it fully and directly. So we'll put a little bit of color in there, not too much. Maybe dirty it up a little bit where it hits the ground here. Always thinking about the texture and about real life and about nature. What would it be like if you were really there? That's what you want to think about when you're doing imaginative drawings. What if it was for realsies? What would it be like? Okay, and if it gets a little bit too dark, I can just erase it out, or I could even use that eraser to start creating a bit of a texture right there. Because I'm imagining that this is probably concrete. All right. So, do I want to do this right now? Probably not, because my hand tends to be resting here a lot. And if you were in my art class, I might teach you a trick or two of keeping your hand out of it. But for now, we'll just go ahead and get these guys here. So once again, picturing this as being wood, we can just make these a little bit rough. And are they catching the light? Yeah, you know what? I think actually they probably are getting a bit of this light. So I'll be careful not to get it too dark, especially around here. Because as I draw it, I want it to have a bit of the magic, The magic of the light. Lighting is everything when it comes to creating images. So once again, you can see that my lines are all following a certain direction. In this case, they're all going down towards that vanishing point. They're not just random. Okay, and so as it moves back, I think I'll reinforce it a little bit darker here, maybe even reinforcing some of the actual slat edges here. And then actually maybe what I'll do too is I will erase out some of this area here, using my eraser as a tool and coming along, the same lines, same direction. There we go. And that will give it more of a sense of light coming up through here. Might even take and give it just a little bit of softness. There we go. So I want to blend that maybe a little bit, not much though. Okay, so now would this pillar cast a shadow? Yes, it would, and that's going to be a huge difference maker. So we know that it's just going to follow the lines of perspective here. I've tried to design this to make it as easy and straightforward as possible. And so it would just go, you can just follow probably one of the lines of the slats that you made up here, and that's just going to cast that shadow back. And whenever I hit an edge like this, remember I go out, and then I lift my pencil up, go out and lift my pencil up. That way I'm not hitting the paper and having it come back on me. We'll make that shadow the darkest in its core, and we'll make sure that we get some texture into that shadow as well, because, we're not on the moon after all. We're going to have some refracted light. So you're going to see into your shadows. Maybe even making it really dark on its core, maybe even really dark where it hits this corner right here. That tends to happen because you're going to get the least amount of reflected light in that area. Cool, looks good. That shadow really made a difference though, didn't it? Wow. Okay, maybe even erasing out that edge a little bit to really give it a sense of light right there. All right, cool. Ooh, a little bit of sky. Not too much sky. Careful, Robert. Ooh, there it is. Get that. Ooh, look at that. That's the nice sense of light. You see, I gave it just a little bit more color in the sky to create a contrast, and I really lightened up that line. Whereas here, the line was really, I felt useful for creating contrast. Here, I wanted that line to kind of disappear, so you just have this flood of light coming up through the top right there. Now let's go ahead and do these guys right here. So the siding, what color is the siding? Just make it a light color. But that being said, it's still going to have texture. I'll put in a little bit of color just with the edge, the flat of the pencil. Not too much on this edge here, because once again, the light's going to be coming into this porch right here, and I want it to be brilliant. I want it to be light right there. All right, and so to really make this form here, we'll put a little bit of a shadow underneath each one of these pieces of siding here. That's going to be a big difference maker in making it look really more three-dimensional. Well, you can see it already, just that little bit that I've done. Just these couple right here, that's already made a big difference. Okay, and then once again, if I really want to bring out this light, maybe what I'll do is I'm going to erase out some of the darkness of this line here. It's on this edge. And that's going to give it more of a sense of light. Hitting that edge right there. Maybe even blending it in a little bit. And right here, I'll give it a little bit more contrast. Okay, cool, cool. Another place where there's going to be some shadow is definitely underneath the siding for the windows. And that's giving it a nice three-dimensional effect. There'd be shadows over here as well. Pretty strong shadows, actually. And you can see how that's really defining this edge right here. Wow, that's really popping it, isn't it? Making it so much more three-dimensional. And don't forget right here, too, because that's coming out, isn't it? Okay. Make it even stronger, even darker here as it's coming towards you. And you know, if you were out there and that sun was so low, like a sunset time of the day, that those shadows would be super long and super strong. So here, even though this is only sticking out a little bit, we'll still add some shadow right here for those windows. Ooh, man, that's really gonna pop it right there. That really gave it a lot of dimension. Just that little bit, right? That little bit. That's all it takes. It's a difference maker. And same thing over here, of course. Okay. And these shadows here that are close to me, I think I'd probably go ahead and give them a little bit more depth into their cores. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness. See, because it's closer to you. Things that are closer to you, you want to give more detail to, more contrast to. Maybe sometimes darken them up a little bit. But mostly it's more contrast is the thing. A bit under here. There we go. There we go. And ooh, maybe even on the tips where they're coming out, we'll give it a little bit of the opposite. We'll bring out a little bit of light on those tips. Give it almost a rounded effect, almost. There. Okay. Well, you didn't know there was so much to just putting on a little bit of siding, huh? Oh, wait until you do it for real. Alrighty then. So then, of course, there'd be a shadow over here on this part of the window frame. Ooh, that was a big difference maker. That really made it pop. It's going to do the same thing over here. Look at that. All of a sudden, that's three-dimensional. It's like magic. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? Of course there'd be a shadow there. Okay, and so then, let's see. So for the frames, I'll make those a little bit darker because they'll have a little bit more contrast that way. So we'll just give it a little bit of texture. Remember, the wood would be going this direction here. And I know those carpenters, they'd probably have it cut off here, here, and here. And so then it would come down the other direction this way. Maybe I'll define that edge a little bit more, make it really nice and dark right there. Keeping it a little bit lighter over here, right? Because we want it to get lighter as we're going that way. Give it the magic. And maybe a little bit of shading for color as well as for texture. There, okay. And so how would we handle this window? Well, I'm just going to make it a little bit reflective of what's going on here. So if I think, oh, okay, so let's go ahead and put on a little bit of that horizon as if it was reflecting the water. And let's pretend that our sun was maybe kind of over here in the corner. So we'll have that just like it did over here. We'll have that sky coming down a little bit darker to a little bit lighter. And same thing here in the water. And a little bit more definition from the wave. Okay, and then here's where our sun would be. And just like we did over here, we could go ahead and probably erase out, put a little bit of that spokes from that sun. Maybe sun over here, that water, a little bit more texture. There, and we've got a nice little reflection of what's going on in the world around it. Reflections are so easy. You know, you can think of them in different ways, but one great way of thinking of reflection is just it's a picture within a picture. There we go. Good enough? Yeah, good enough for this drawing, I guess. A little bit more. Right there, maybe. Okay, cool. And so then the door is a bit easier. We'll just once again put some texture in here.